Hey everybody, Marcus Crawford here with the Idaho Quadcopter channel. Hey, I'm out on a sunny but pretty cool day in Meridian, Idaho. I am at Heroes Park, a place you guys have seen me fly quite often before. I'm in the parking lot this time, and the reason we're here today, I've got the DJI Mini 2, and what we're going to talk about today is return to home. There's a lot of nuance to return to home other than just pushing the button on the controller and watching the drone come back to you. There's three kinds of return to home. There's smart return to home, which is just what we're talking about, pushing the button and the drone comes back. But there's some details to that we need to talk about and we'll go into, setting your return to home height, etc. And then there's also low battery return to home. Just what you would think that means. There's an algorithm within the app that figures out how far out the drone is and when it's got enough battery power to return to home. And the app gives you plenty of warning, but it's something that you don't want to ignore, and we'll look at that as well. And then also there's fail-safe return to home. Fail-safe return to home is essentially losing connection, and we'll even experiment with that a little bit here today with what happens if your drone loses connection with the controller. The main thing that I want to get across here is you don't need to be afraid. Your drone is going to come back to you. Now, because this guy does not have obstacle avoidance, there are some things that you need to think about. If there's an object between you and where that drone's coming back, and if it's not up high enough, yeah, it'll just run right into it. So you need to know those things. So let's quit messing around. Let's get this little guy in the air, and we'll go over some of these scenarios. Okay, we've got the drone hooked up and it's ready to fly. As part of your safety checklist, obviously you're going to look over the drone first and check the propellers and check the drone for its overall condition and that there's no damage to it. But then one of the things that I always do is click first on the safety menu in the app. So those three dots in the top right hand corner on the safety menu, and this is where you set your auto return to home altitude. I've got it set currently, as you can see, at 60 meters. I'm going to move it quite a bit lower than that for this demonstration, just for expediency, and I know roughly how tall these trees are and so forth, so we won't get in trouble. So we're going to run it right down to 30 meters, and that's more than enough. That's over 100 feet, or right about 100 feet, so we should be good there. Then as you go down, you want to check to make sure that you don't need a compass calibration or an IMU calibration. It's saying normal in both of those cases. You can check your battery. I always check the battery meter on the main page of the app, but you can look here. You can see we're at 4.3 volts for each battery, so looks like we're in good shape. And yeah, if you look in the top right there, our battery meter shows us at 99%, so we're good to go. So we should be able to take off here. I always film in 4K, but let's go look at that. We're set at 4K, 30 frames per second, so I'm going to start recording now. And yeah, let's just go ahead and take off. We are going to do an auto takeoff, and as we do, the drone will set its home point. It's sitting right on the landing pad right now, so you'll have an opportunity to see that as soon as I get out of the way. So here we go. So there's the drone on the landing pad. I'm going to hit takeoff on the app, and we're going to get this little guy in the air. Such a smooth little drone. Look at it, just hovers there like it's hanging from a string. So we'll turn it around here. One of the positive things about not having obstacle avoidance is that you can bring this drone right in. Now I'm seeing a little bit of movement there. There, it's smoothed out. I'm not sure what that was about, but we'll bring it in here. So there's a good look at the drone, and one of the things that I always show in my videos is how that gimbal keeps everything nice and smooth. So we're going to rock it back and forth here, and you can see that gimbal keep things smooth. As I back it up, you'll see the gimbal drop a little bit, and that's how it keeps that smooth, stable video that we're used to. The other thing that I do is I always do a manual droney when I start out here. So we're going to point the drone in the right direction here. Well, let me move it over here just a little bit so that we don't back it into any trees or anything, but this will also serve to demonstrate our first return to home. So we're going to go up and away right now, reverse and up. And again, I am going to steer the drone a little. I don't want to go out onto the street, and I don't want to go out over the top of any people. So we're kind of over the pond there a little bit. Let me drop the gimbal down so you can kind of, and yacht back here so you can kind of see where we're at. There, I'm standing right there. And we're out about 55 meters, and we're about 17 meters high. Now, as you'll recall, we set our return to home height at 30 meters. So when I hit return to home, either here on the controller or on the app, the drone will rise to its return to home height of 30 meters, and then it'll come back to its takeoff point and land. So, so we're going to do that on the app right now. And you'll see the app gives us an option there to either return to home or simply land in place. You know, you may want to use that land in place from time to time, but we're going to do return to home, and we're just holding it down. And as soon as that circle is complete, and look at the drone, it's rising to its 30 meters, and it's not messing around, and it's coming back to us, and it'll reach a top speed of 10.5 meters per second. And I don't know, we're not going to hit that because it wasn't far enough away, but let me drop the gimbal down so you can see where we're at. And it's pretty close to our home point. We're just going to let it land, and it's going to be a little ways off from where we took off, but this drone does not have precision landing like some other DJI drones where it'll look for the landing pad, and it'll automatically raise that camera you'll see here. I think about a couple meters off the ground. Yeah, well, a little higher than that, 3 meters it looks like. And it raises the camera up automatically so it doesn't punch it into the ground. And there you go. That is just a standard return to home. So let's show you some other variables that you'll need to know about with return to home. Okay, there's another aspect of smart return to home that you need to know about, and that is when you take off and the drone is less than 20 meters away from its takeoff point. Let's take off right now. It's updated the home point, so let's move up. So we're 19 meters away, 18 meters away. Let's hit return to home and see what happens. You'll see return to home is not available under 20 meters. And it used to be that if you hit return to home within 20 meters, the drone would land. But it looks to me like DJI corrected that, because what they don't want you to do is, say you're flying over a body of water or something, hit return to home, and the drone goes into landing mode, and yeah, that wouldn't be a happy time. So, let's bring the drone forward, and we'll do a manual landing here. See how close I am to the, not too bad here. Let's back it up just a little. And then to do a manual landing, we're just going to pull the stick straight down, the left stick straight down. Puts it into landing mode. And boom, there we are, shuts off the motors. So if you're within 20 meters, the drone will simply hover in place, and if you want to bring it in for a landing, you're gonna do it manually. Or if you really just want to return to home, you could back it up past 20 meters and then we'll ascend to its return to home height and land. Okay, there's some other things that we can do with return to home. We can actually change our return to home point in a couple of different ways, and let me show you how that's done. So the drone is recording its home point where we're at right now. But let's go up and out. In fact, let's go out over the field here. Let's get this baby out a little ways. Drop that gimbal down. And we're a good 100 meters away from us. And let's let the drone hover there for a second. And say I move to a different spot and I want the drone to land where I am with the controller, I can do that. So I'm going to move out here a ways and in a different place in the parking lot with the controller. And let's look at how I could have the drone land where I'm at. So again, we're going to hit the three dots in the top right hand corner of the app. And we're still in battery info. Let's go into safety again. We're going to go in here where it says update home point, and it brings us to a map, and you can see me here in Heroes Park. And if I click on the you'll see the two icons on the left side of the map there, a picture of a controller and a little diamond. We're going to click on controller, and that is going to bring the drone, reset the home point back to me where I'm at with the controller. So updated the return to home point. You can see it set on the screen there. Let's hit return to home on the controller. And let's monitor this drone coming back. Let me drop the gimbal down so you can see me standing there. And here comes the drone. Let's drop that gimbal down. Gimbal moved just a little bit, and look at how close it is. It's coming pretty darn close to where I'm standing. So let me back off here so it doesn't land on my head. And you can see the drone coming down there. And it picks up the camera, blows a leaf away, and look at that. There we are back on the ground. Now, why would you want to reset your home point to your controller? Let's say that you're on a hike and you're flying your drone and you're hiking and you've got your drone flying around and you're a ways away from where you originally took off at. Well, you don't want to have to go back there if you set return to home to go get your drone. You could then tell it to land where you are with the controller, and the drone will come right to you. So just a feature you need to know about. So there's another thing that you can do. You can actually on the map manually set a return to home point. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we're going to take off again, and we're going straight up. And you saw it set our return to home point there. And again, let's push this guy out into the middle of the field here. And you can see I've got the return to home, excuse me, not the return to home. I have the drone up at 50 meters in height. And we'll talk about what that means here in a second. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change the return to home point, or the home point, excuse me, of the drone. So again, we go into update home point, and you can see that the little diamond is highlighted on the map there. So what I can do is I can move the map around and I can reset the home point. So you can see I've got the home point set kind of directly in front of me in this line here. So you know, it's kind of hard to tell on the map how accurate is that going to be. I don't know. I hope we're fairly accurate, but we'll find out. So as soon as I click OK, it will reset the home point to that location. So it updated the home point. Let's do a return to home, And let me grab the camera here and we'll go out there and see if it lands in that spot. And of course it will, but how accurate that map is, we'll find out. So we're going to hit return to home on the controller. And you can see the drone turning around, coming back to us, kind of facing the sun, so I dropped the camera there. So I'm going to walk to the approximate location that I believe that I set for return to home. And as you can see, it's going to be kind of close here, so I don't want it. Yeah, no, I think we're going to be fine. I was a little concerned about it landing in the center of those rocks, but I think we're going to be fine. So there's the drone coming down. So you can see, you can reset the home point, but you know, the accuracy is going to be, it's a little difficult to tell on the map. But it's not liking that spot, so we'll in fact what we'll do is we'll just fly the drone back with us. I could carry the drone back, but why do that when I can fly it? Heck, it'll beat us back. Let's talk about low battery return to home. So when the algorithm within the drone figures out that the drone only has enough battery life to return to home and land, it'll give you a warning on the screen and tell you, hey, I need to come home, and it'll do a countdown. And if you let that countdown complete, the drone will come home. Now you can cancel it, do so at your own risk. Now sometimes you know the drone is close enough that it's not going to be a problem, and I've done it myself. You cancel it, do whatever you need to do, then hit return to home. Most of the time though, you should heed what that algorithm says and just click OK, or let the countdown complete and let the drone return to home. So we're down to 30% battery right now. Let's take off, let's do a little flyabout and see if we can get it out far enough that it will go into low battery return to home for us. So I'm going to hit takeoff on the screen. And let's go straight up and out. Sorry for that quick yaw. Rather than flying the drone FPV, I was doing it by line of sight. So anyway, let's go ahead and fly out to the corner of the park here. In fact, let's throw the drone into sport mode. And look at it tip that gimbal down. And it's moving. We made it to 14 meters per second there. And we're going to burn up some battery fast here this way, down to 25%. And you can see that line. I guess I should show you. I can tap on that and it'll tell me how long I have until return to home. It says 1 minute and 30 seconds or roughly. Well, since I stopped, that's going up. And then it'll also tell you how long until forced landing, so and how long until battery depleted. So those are handy things to know that battery gauge will tell you. But just looking at it, you can see that it is still in the green zone. When we get into that yellow zone, it'll want to come home. So I'm going to pick up the gimbal just a little bit here. Again, we're in sport mode. Let's go full stick forward. And we'll burn up some battery here real quick. And come to a stop. There we go. So it's at 20%. So at 20%, it'll give you a low battery prompt. Now, we can still fly because we still have enough battery power. It is not in the yellow yet. So we're going to go full stick forward again here to the other corner of the park. And you can see it dropping down. And when it gets into that yellow, it'll give us that warning that it wants to come home. I'm going to go into normal mode here. And let's turn around again. Just fly around till we get that thing into that yellow mode and we get that return to home warning. So here we are. Yeah, so there we go. You saw it very quickly drop down, and we'll just let the countdown. We could either hit confirm or we'll let the countdown here, and then it's automatically went into low battery return to home there. And here it comes, and it'll come right back to its takeoff point now. You can see me standing there. Dropping the gimbal down as we go. And here it comes. We were already at 61 meters high, so the drone was high enough that it didn't have to go to its return to home height. Got a pickup going by here, but he'll be by before we land. We're going to be pretty close to that landing pad here. And again, you can look at that battery meter and you can see that it says, hey, we're in the green again, because it knows it's close enough to home that it's going to make it home just fine. Okay, I'm going to cancel return to home. You saw me cancel there. Let's pick that camera back up. And boy, it's really squawking at us. It wants to land. So let me move it out here a ways. So eventually the drone will simply go into auto landing mode, and no matter what it will start to land no matter what I do. Let's bring the drone over here. And let's just let it go into that landing mode. I believe it's 5%. Now, I understand, I think if you get that at 10%, you're still able to push up on the stick and control the drone, but there is a point that the drone is going to come down whether you push up on that left stick or not. So we're at 5% now. Yeah, low battery landing. So at 5%, it says, hey, I'm going to land. So let's let it confirm, and then there it's landing. Let me see. Yeah, see, I pushed up on the stick. So at 5%, you can still push up on the stick and it'll still go up. So, you know, if you get in that situation, you can still control the drone. Good to know. I've never experimented with that before. I've heard about it, but I wonder, I know at some point it's just going to say, I'm landing no matter what you do, Marcus. So we'll see what happens here. We're at 3% battery, and I can still push up. I'm going to get it pretty low to the ground here, and I can also push forward. I can still push up. 2% battery, I can still push up. Good to know. 1% battery, I can still push up. I know at some point here, though, it's not going to let me. At some point, it's just going to say, I'm landing. It'll still push up. So it's 0%, and I'm still able to push up on the stick. I'm going to let the drone land. I don't want to risk it, so the drone is landing. So there you go. And let me also add, I don't recommend running your batteries that low. LiPo batteries don't like to be ran empty. And as soon as I get home, I'm going to put a charge on this battery so it doesn't remain at that level. And I see that recording turned off. Now, I didn't see exactly when that happened. It may have done it, well, I'm not sure. So in any case, it's interesting to know that you can still push up on the stick and keep the drone off the ground. Kind of a safety factor there. I was always told that there's a point that it's going to land no matter what, and I assume now that that's probably when it's just completely out of battery, because we were at 0% there, you saw, and I was still able to push up on the stick and have the drone ascend. So let me put another battery in, and I've got some more things to show you with regard to return to home. All right, now we're going to show you fail-safe return to home. So this gets into what would happen if you lost connection to the drone with the controller. Now, that could be for a number of reasons. You flew the drone out of range and lost connection, at which the drone will try and regain connection. If you flew it out of range and it loses connection, the drone will back up. It won't go to return to home. It'll back up 50 meters and try and regain connection. And then if it doesn't, it'll turn around, it'll ascend to its return to home altitude and come home. Now, we can't demonstrate that because I'm not going to fly this drone out to the limits of its range. But what we can do is show you what would happen if your controller failed, if you didn't have enough charge on the battery and say the battery died, or of course I'm sure it would give you some warning, but just for the sake of argument here, or if the controller quit, etc. What happens on fail-safe return to home? So let's take off here, let's take a look at that. And our home point is updated. You always want to make sure that you do have an updated home point. And we're up about 26 meters high, which is below that 30 meters that, as you'll recall, we set for our return to home point. In fact, I'm going to lower it here a little bit because I want you to be able to visibly see the drone rise when it enters return to home. So we've got it out there a ways. Gosh, quite a ways. We've got it out about 180 meters over the park, and it's about 17 meters high, 16 meters high. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the controller. So we've lost connection, and the drone will wait 11 seconds before it does anything. And then after 11 seconds, it'll go into return to home. What the drone is doing now, rather than return to its return to home height, is moving back. The manual says 50 meters, trying to regain connection. When it doesn't regain connection, you will see it rise here to its return to home height and then come on in for a return to home. And boy, it doesn't waste any time coming back, does it? It will accelerate up to 10.5 meters per second on its return trip, and it rose to its 30-meter return to home height, and it's coming down. As you can see, I've got nothing on the controller here. The controller is off, and we are just going to let the drone land. Yeah, it's going to be in a place, I just wanted to pay attention and make sure that it wasn't going to land at any rocks or anything. And there we have it. So as you saw there, it landed, oh gosh, within 3 feet or so of the takeoff point, which I think is pretty good. And that is with the controller completely off. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is you're not going to lose your drone. A number of things can happen, and DJI has built a number of fail-safes into this thing that your drone is going to come back to you. So you don't need to get too nervous about that. Okay, we did a lot of stuff with the DJI Mini 2 today, and showed you a lot of different versions of return to home. We showed you the various things that you can do with smart return to home, how if you're closer than 20 meters and hit return to home, the drone is just going to hover in place. Now, if you're more than 20 meters out, the drone will indeed ascend to its return to home altitude and land. And that's the other thing we showed you, is how to set that return to home altitude. The drone keeps moving around here a little bit. So that's the other thing we showed you, is how to set that return to home altitude. And then within the smart return to home, you can also tell the drone to return to your controller, and we demonstrated that. In other words, not its home point that it took off from, where you might be standing with the controller. Handy feature. And then we also showed you how you can reset that home point to wherever you want on the map. You can move around the map. Now, you have to pay attention to accuracy on that, but you can get pretty darn close, and you can reset the home point someplace completely different. And then we also talked about the low battery return to home point, and I learned some things there too. I thought that when the drone was below 5%, it would land no matter what. You could push it forward or back, but it would continue to descend. We took it all the way down to 0, and I was still able to push the left stick up and ascend with the drone. So that's just something that's good to know. But in low battery return to home, when the algorithm within the app, it monitors how much battery you have left and will show you when that drone needs to come back. And my advice is to pay attention to that. And when it wants to come home, let it come home. That'll keep you from losing your drone. And then we also then looked at fail-safe return to home. What happens when you lose connection with the controller? Now that could be because of either flying the drone out of range, or you're blocked by a building or something, and you lose connection to the drone. The drone, after 11 seconds, is going to return. It's going to go to its return to home altitude and come back to you. And then the way we did it was just simply turning off the controller to let the drone go into fail-safe return to home. Now, you do need to remember, the reason that you want to pay attention to your return to home height is, for instance, if you were blocked by terrain and the drone goes into return to home, unless it rises high enough to get above that terrain, and it's in direct line of sight of the home point, it'll fly right into it. So just keep those things in mind when you're flying. Be careful if you're flying around, say, a hill or a mountain or a really tall tree or something, and you don't have your return to home point set higher than that. That's the other piece of advice that I'm going to give you. I typically set my return to home height way higher than it needs to be. I set mine at 60 or 70 meters. I know by default now, DJI sets it at 100 meters. They want it way up there. They want you to be able to get home without hitting something. And again, the DJI Mini 2 does not have obstacle avoidance or APAS like the Mavic Air 2 or the Mavic 2 has, where it could potentially go around an obstacle and not fly into an obstacle. This guy doesn't know that there's anything in front of it, and it'll fly right into it. So I guess that's about it. I hope you got something out of this video. I had a lot of fun putting it together. This is Marcus Crawford with the Idaho Quadcopter channel out. And if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Most of all, I really appreciate you taking the time to look at this video. And of course, we'll see you on the next one. All right, bye now. Just a little bonus footage here, folks. We'll go over in the corner of the park here. We've got some battery. Let's take a look at the Boise foothills here, because they got plenty of snow, and it's a nice crystal clear blue sky day. There they are. I'm going to pick the gimbal up just a little bit. Move it over. We'll look at those mountains. And let's do a zoom here. So I'm going to hold the function button in, scroll wheel up, and we're going to get 2x zoom shooting in 4K. Boy, lots of snow up there. Looks good, doesn't it? Lots of folks enjoying some great skiing up at Bogus Basin, or snowboarding. Okay, let's back it back out here. And I love being able to do that smooth zoom in and zoom out. All right. Let's hit return to home on the app now. Return to home. The winter sun is sure low in the sky. And it doesn't mess around. It's coming back at that 10.5 meters per second. And there we are right there. It's going to be a little bit further off this time, a little further off the pad. Well, not as far as I thought. Looking pretty good. Picks up the camera. And there we go. Thanks, everybody.